Weekdays at 5 p.m. on ESPN Cleveland 101.3. Cleveland and Bradley County's local sports show. Weekdays at 5 on ESPN Cleveland 101.3.
United Structural Systems is proud to bring you this U.S. Open update on ESPN Cleveland 101.3. USS is your local expert for foundation repair, waterproofing, and concrete lifting. Give them a call at 423-320-8883 or visit them online at ussTN.com.
From the Kia of Cleveland Studios, this is ESPN Cleveland 101.3, WCLE HD2 Cleveland, W267BI Cleveland, ESPN Cleveland 101.3.
The top of the hour is presented by Best Buy Metals, making the top of your house the best it can be. Visit bestbuymetalroofing.com.
It's time for The Drive on ESPN Cleveland 101.3, presented by Hardees. We will bring you nonstop sports news from the national and local scene and everything in between. So buckle up and join in on the conversation. It's The Drive.
Don't take no slide. Got a thirst for killing. Think about it.
Thank you for joining The Drive here on a Friday afternoon here in the beautiful city of Cleveland, Tennessee. Hope everyone out there is having a good Friday, and hopefully the rain will hold off a little bit. We can have at least a semblance of a decent weekend, but it seems like that every weekend now, guys, it's just rain, and that's what's on the forecast again this weekend. But you know what? We'll make the best of it. Hey, as long as the games that are being played and the golf that's being played is not washed out. Hey, this is Jim Gum here on ESPN. Camden Gober is here filling in once again for the ailing Andy Morris. Camden, thanks for coming in, brother.
Yeah, no problem, Jim. Thank you for having me on again.
Yeah, Andy's he's just got this I guess it's a sinus infection. He struggled, man. He struggled earlier this week, and not surprised to see him having to sit this one out once again. But there's a lot of stuff going on in the world of sports. We're going to talk about the Braves as they get going against the Rockies later on tonight, hopefully, if the rain doesn't wash that one out. But we got some great sports going on. Obviously, we have the U.S. Open. We're going to get into that. But the men's College World Series has already begun, and we got a good one going out there in Omaha right now.
Oh, yeah. Game 1 of the College World Series is not disappointed so far. This is one people definitely circled going into it. Arizona and Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina is the number 13 national seed. Coastal looked like early on, it looked like they could kind of blow this one open early. They got 2 early runs and bases loaded, but Arizona got out of it. And ever since that point, it's been a very close game. It was knotted up at 4 for a while, but Coastal Carolina just took a 3-run advantage in the bottom of the 8th, looking to close that one out. Coastal Carolina is up 7-4 going into the 9th inning.
So Arizona coming to bat top of the 9th, down 3. So, you know, Coastal Carolina, these guys, they've won it once before. They've only been to the College World Series once, and they made the most of it.
Yeah.
So here they are again, and, listen, this is a really good, solid baseball program they got at Coastal, and they're like you said, it's fun to watch these guys. Now, obviously, they're not going to have the biggest crowds there. I mean, we expect that Arkansas and LSU will have the biggest crowds and the most vocal crowds, and but it's fun to see a school like a Coastal Carolina having success on the big stage.
Oh, yeah. We were talking about it before the show, and you just hit on it a little bit. Coastal Carolina only made it to the College World Series one time previous to this year in 2016, and they happened to win the entire thing. Now, if they win this game today, they're still batting 1,000 in my eyes.
That's crazy, man.
Just staying red hot when they get to Omaha. They might be one of those programs, just always keep your eye out for them. They're like those schools you see in the NCAA tournament in basketball. It's like, hey, as long as they get a shot to get in, they can make some noise very quickly. Maybe
they're going to become the Gonzaga of college baseball.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good example.
Gonzaga, you don't hear about Gonzaga in any sport except for basketball.
Yep.
And, they're a regular, and they advance more often than not, at least go to the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8, but of course, they've never won a national championship.
Yeah, they've come close.
Coastal Carolina now, on the other hand, they have. So, hello. I'm a real fan of that program, so good for them. So let's see if they can, I guess, end this thing, and when I say end it, but at least go up 1-0 in the College World Series. So
yeah.
And then tonight, I think, is it Louisville, Oregon State? Is that
it is? Yes.
Yeah. So those are the 2 games on Friday night.
Yeah, Louisville, Oregon State is definitely one to keep your eye on. we both like Oregon State a lot. I think you picked them to make it all the way to the national title game.
Yeah.
I think they're just, from top to bottom, I know they're top 8 seeds. This isn't really going on a limb, but they're one of the best hitting teams in the country. They've got some pitching struggles, but they'll definitely be there in the long run. They're one to keep an eye on. But this Louisville team, man, they've got the program, they've got the legacy, they got the coaching. They're just one nobody really picked to be there, even though they were a number 2 national seed. They won at Vanderbilt, who was the number 1 overall seed. So they have that win on their resume, and they just keep winning. They made it all the way to Omaha. Why not? Or why stop there?
Yeah, no, I actually picked Miami to win again last weekend. Of course, Louisville put them out. Put them away in 3 games. But this Louisville team, man, they're a solid team.
They're scrappy,
listen, and they come out of the ACC. And listen, I know the SEC has the dominant, past. The ACC is a really good baseball conference too.
Oh yeah, and I think it's a very interesting stat. Since 2019, the National Championship Series in college baseball has been between 2 SEC teams. That streak will break this year just because there are 2 SEC teams in the field, but they happen to be both on the same side of the bracket.
Correct.
So we will at least get one non-SEC team in the National Championship Series. We'll see if they can break the streak of non-SEC teams winning it. Oregon State was the last one to win it back in 2018. We'll see if they can break the curse themselves.
Yeah, and of course, back then, Oregon State was representing the Pac-12. What's ironic, if you look at the teams that are in there, 3 of the teams in the College World Series were Pac-12 teams just a year ago.
Yeah.
I mean, you got
It's
Arizona.
crazy.
Arizona is representing the Big 12 this year. Oregon State, unfortunately, is considered an independent. Now, the Pac-12 is trying to build that thing back up. But for right now, they're an independent. And you talk about they only played 19 home games all year last year. And then UCLA is now in the Big 10. So it's crazy. So the Pac-12 historically has done very, very well in the College World Series. And, they had that. If you ever remember watching a lot of college basketball, Bill Walton was always in the Conference of Champions.
Conference of Champions, yeah.
The late, great Bill Walton. And that's because if you look historically, the Pac-12 has won more national championships than any conference ever. Now, a lot of them were not exactly the biggest sports, but they all count. Volleyball, water polo. Not exactly big revenue sports, but they do count.
I mean, just look at Stanford by themselves every year. They're all the way up there, and any sport you can name, they're in the top 5 finish of it. It seems like
they do. Was it the Learfield, the all sports thing? Is it Learfield?
I'm blanking on what it's called.
But it's one of the sponsors. But somebody that sponsors that. I mean, Stanford's always in the top 3 or 4. Texas is way up there. You've got your. You got a few schools, but like I said, Stanford's always one of those schools that's competing for the all sports title.
Yeah.
So anyway, now let's switch gears just a little bit. The U.S. Open going on today, and man, oh man, has it been an interesting day out there at the Oakmont Club outside of Pittsburgh. Again, J.J. Spaun. Say what you want about this guy. This is the 2nd day in a row that he is leading this tournament. He played an even, he's playing an even round thus far today. He's through 13, so he's still 4 under for the tournament. But man, oh man, he's seen some crazy scores today. Sam Burns from the United States began the day in 31st place. He is currently tied for 2nd place. He shot a 5 under 65 today.
Yeah.
Far better than just about anyone else.
Yeah, have a day, Sam Burns. That one really catches your eye just because if you look at the scores all the way down the leaderboard, if you shoot 5 under on the day, I mean, that's so unheard of at this course they're playing at. And I'm very shocked. We were talking about this yesterday. I'm very shocked that J.J. Spaun is actually still at the top of the leaderboard. So, I mean, hats off to him. He's even. But like you said before the show, it's better to be even than over.
Yep.
So he's maintaining. He's still at the top of the leaderboard. A bunch of other guys had a good day. Victor Hovland had a great day.
That guy.
He shot 2 under. He's 1 under on the day. Worked his way up all the way to 5th place. And a guy to keep an eye on that I really liked going into it is Ben Griffin. He's been red hot. He's placed very high in a lot of these tournaments before the U.S. Open, even in the qualifiers. He hasn't won one, but he's almost made it. He's been top 5 in all these. He's sitting there at dead even through 11 on the day. He's definitely one to keep an eye on as the rest of the weekend unfolds.
Ben, where did he go to school? Do you know where he went to school? Because I remember that name, and I could be confusing him with someone else, but that name sounds like someone I remember seeing playing college golf. Now, I could be, like I said, I could be getting him confused with somebody else, but no. And then, of course, I'm a Scotty Scheffler guy, and he's sitting there at 4 over. So, he did drop.
How about that?
He did drop one stroke today. He began at 3 over, and he shot 1 over. So now he's sitting there at 4 over. He's tied for 26th. That's not exactly where you want to be, but you could be a lot worse.
Yeah, I think if you just make the cut this week, I think you got a chance just because how tough the course conditions are. And a guy like Scotty Scheffler, I mean, he's just had 2 abnormal days for him. I mean, he's usually a guy that you can rely on hitting the fairways and, just staying out of trouble. And, he just hasn't been able to stay out of trouble the last couple of days. But I think if he makes the cut, he's still in position to make a deep run at this thing.
I mean, think about this. Of all of the guys that are playing, now we got a lot of guys still on the course right now, but you got 2 guys that are even, and you got 5 guys that are under par. Every single guy after that, they're all over par. That's how difficult this is. That is so
It is unreal.
PGA-like when you see any other tournament. This is very typical, though, of the U.S. Open. This is pretty much what they want. They want to make it difficult. They will reward you for being accurate, okay? But if you're off just a little bit, man, your score will skyrocket. And I love it. I know a lot of people don't like it. They think and I'm going to ask you this. I don't think it's gimmicky. Some people say that the U.S. Open is gimmicky the way they set the course up. How do you feel about it?
No, I don't think there's a course too hard for golfers nowadays. You all the technology they get to use, all the training that they do, they've hit the ball farther than they ever have before, as accurate as they ever have before. They're reading greens better than they ever have before. I don't think there's a course too hard for them, and I think fans like this. I think a tournament like this is really like turning people's heads. Like, well, you turn on the TV and you're watching all these guys, all of a sudden they're looking a lot more amateur, like a lot more like
I can
like
relate.
me or you.
I can relate
exactly.
to him. It looks like me out there.
Exactly. You can relate to him a little bit more. That kind of catches people's eye. I mean, just look at the projected cut line right now. 7 over is the projected cut line
That's
right
insane.
now. I have never seen a major have a projected cut line that low before.
I love it.
I love it too.
I do. I love it. I think it's great. But I think when I watch these guys and I see them flub up, I mean, listen, if I played this course, I might shoot 150.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't finish, honestly.
Oh, I'd finish. I'm not running out of golf balls.
Yeah,
but I'd
for
finish.
sure.
I'd be pulling golf balls out there with like 15 years old.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, honestly, it's that hard. It's that hard. And the pin placement on these greens is so tricky, and it's challenging. And the guys, these pros know how to play this game better than anyone. But it's an art form as to when you hit the green, you got to hit it in the right spot because, man, you don't want it like running down the hill and then instead of a 15 foot putt, you got a 35-foot putt.
Yeah.
And that can make the difference of where the ball hits between 2 or 3 feet. It may stay up on the shelf or it may roll down that shelf. And if it rolls down, you're in trouble.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
And now you've got a really, really tough par putt or, a birdie putt or a par putt or even a bogey putt. So that's what happens, and it's these pin placements, and you can't be in that rough, man.
Oh no! If you're in the rough, you might as well call it a day. I mean, that's where guys like Scotty Scheffler have kind of lived the past couple of days, and that's why their score's not reflecting. But even after we're talking about how tough the conditions are, you still see guys like Sam Burns go out and shoot 5 under today. That just shows you. These pros have what it takes. It's just the course is just so challenging, and you just gotta stay on course. No pun intended. Make sure you stay out of trouble. That's the biggest thing, and you'll be all right. But I definitely rather see scores like this than see a tournament where there's 10 different guys 20 under. I mean, I much rather prefer this type of course.
Oh, no doubt. Hey, but by the way, we will talk about the Rockies and Braves in the next segment, but I am going to throw this out there. For my brother, he's an NHL fan. He loves the Stanley Cup Finals. The Oilers came back to win last night in overtime, 5-4 over the Panthers. The series is now tied 2-2. The Panthers led that darn thing 3-0 after the first period, and a lot of people probably flipped the TV off or change channels because I thought, hey, this game's over, this series is over. The Panthers going to be up 3-1. They've got this game in the bag, and all of a sudden the Oilers, they tied up. They sent it to overtime. They win it in overtime. So now you got a Stanley Cup final tied up at 2. Now it's best out of 3. So, and I know you're an NHL guy. I'm not an NHL guy, but I mean the Stanley Cup is, and I listen. A lot of people say the Stanley Cup, the trophy itself, is the most revered trophy in all of professional sports in North America.
The trophy.
That's what some people say.
The trophy looks so cool. I will say this: I'm not a big hockey guy at all. Full honesty, I don't watch any hockey, but the crowds when it comes playoff time it's a sight to see. I mean, they really, really get up for these games. It's really rowdy. I've never been to a hockey game. I don't know if you've ever been to one.
I have. I've been to a minor league hockey game, and I'm going to tell you something. That is the one sport in person. It's far superior in person than it is on television.
See, that's
far superior.
I've heard that a ton. Like people have been like, "Well, why don't you go like check out a Predators game in Nashville or something?" It's like if you give it a try, you might like it. I haven't yet, but one day I'll probably eventually go to one, and I'll see what it's all about.
By the way, there's a strong rumor out there that Atlanta may be getting another NHL team. Now they've had 2 and lost 2. They had the original Atlanta Flames, then they had the Atlanta Thrashers. Now there's an arena looks like it could be built in Gwinnett, and it's going to be like an 18,000 seat arena that'll be for an NHL expansion team or a franchise that may relocate to Atlanta. Some people are saying, hey, Atlanta, you've had 2 chances and you blew it twice. Does Atlanta get a third opportunity to have an NHL team? Listen, I don't know, but I promise you, if they were to have an 18,000 seat arena, supposedly there's going to be like a big, you've been to Truist Field, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the battery around it, how cool that is. Supposedly, there's some big complex that's going to be built there in Gwinnett, similar to the Battery, where you'd have all these shops, all this big. It'd be a big complex with a big arena smack dab in the middle of it, and it would be like a happening. It would not be in Fulton County, wouldn't even be in Atlanta. But I think I don't know. Can you justify giving Atlanta a third chance? That is the big question. I don't know.
Look, I will say this. I don't think hockey's very big in the South, obviously, but as of late, there are a bunch of hockey teams in the South, like we're talking about.
The Florida Panthers.
Yeah, Florida Panthers. I mean, you would have never thought a hockey team in Florida would work out, but you've seen how much success they've had. Them and even the Lightning over the last
Bay
couple
Lightning.
years. Yeah,
you've had the
teams
Hurricane,
like that.
the Hurricanes down there, and Raleigh, North Carolina.
I mean, it worked out in Nashville. I don't know how long ago or how long the Preds have been there, but it's worked out bits and pieces around the South. Now, I didn't know Atlanta had hockey team before.
They had the Atlanta Flames. They moved to Calgary. Now they're the Calgary Flames. They had the Atlanta Thrashers, and of course they moved away too. So they're without an NHL franchise and haven't had one. I guess it's been 20 years or so. But there's a lot of talk right now that Atlanta could be getting another NHL team. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Listen, the thought is that there's a lot of transplanted people in Atlanta that are from the North or grew up in the hockey areas, and now they've relocated to Atlanta. That's the mindset. And that's the mindset for the Florida Panthers down in Miami. You got a lot of people from New York, New Jersey. They relocate down to South Florida, and they're NHL fans, they're hockey fans, and they've done well. That franchise has done really well, and it's a extremely well-run franchise. They've won multiple Stanley Cups.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the same as the Predators. Like a bunch of Northerners, moved down to the South into Nashville area, and I think that's kind of what took off. But I always think when I'm talking about like expansion teams or teams relocating, I think it takes like one really good season. You have one season, you make the playoffs, you get a lot more fans that kind of draw in with you, and then from that moment on, it's gone. Like there's a bunch of people that didn't agree with the Supersonics moving over to OKC. But they had all the talent in the world. I mean, they had Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant at the time, too, when they got those two on board right as the move occurred into OKC, and then you saw what happened there. They took off, and they have, I think, one of the best fan bases in the NBA. I mean, I think they have amazing crowds for an NBA team. So, at the end of the day, I mean, you never really know until you know. But
Yep.
I think it's always worth a shot to try something new.
All right, let's go ahead and take our first break. When we come back, we are going to talk about the Rockies and Braves. We'll get into that when we come back. You're listening to ESPN in Cleveland. We'll be back after this.
The Drive will be back after a quick timeout. Stay tuned for more nonstop sports talk on The Drive, presented by Hardees.
Hardee's Original Bag packs 2 full-size favorites, plus fries and a drink starting at $5.99. Pair any 2 items. Choose from a charbroiled double cheeseburger, hot ham and cheese, or hand-breaded chicken tender wrap. Or choose 2 double cheeseburgers for just $1 more. A great big bag of original goodness starting at just $5.99. Only at Hardee's. Download the Hardee's app and join My Rewards for special offers. These items only, tax not included. Price and participation may vary.
Hip or knee pain holding you back? There's a new reason to feel hopeful. Dr. Andrew Carlone is now part of the team at Center for Sports Medicine and Orthopedics in Cleveland. He brings advanced training in total hip and knee replacement, including minimally invasive techniques that get you back on your feet faster. Let Cleveland's orthopedic experts help you live your best life. Call 423-624-2696 or go to sportmed.com to book your visit now.
Cleveland Tire Center, locally owned and operated for over 45 years. Cleveland Tire, your one-stop auto care shop in Cleveland. North Lee Highway, where the name says it all.
For a quarter of a century, Mix 1041 has been taking you out to the ball game.
Swanson to first. The Braves are world champions.
Since 2000, Mix 1041 has been the home of the Atlanta Braves, and we're celebrating by giving away tickets to Atlanta Braves games all summer long. Listen for your chance to call or text to qualify. You can also register at the Mix socials on Facebook and Instagram. Braves 25 is presented by Cleveland Ford. Honest people, honest deals.
Your current Milligan Vane temperature is 83 degrees. MilliganVane.com.
Welcome back to The Drive, presented by Hardees. Join the conversation. Text 423-749-1013. You can also listen anywhere on our website, ESPNCleveland1013.com.
You're listening to The Drive here on ESPN Cleveland. Hope everyone out there is having a fantastic Friday. Hey, when it comes to Mayfield Dairy Ice Cream, you'll never have a boring bite. Their limited edition ice creams, cherry chocolate chip and banana pudding, are inspired by traditional Southern recipes and seasonal favorites. Pick some up today at your local grocery store. So that gets us to our talking about the Atlanta Braves, and they have a real opportunity this weekend, in my personal opinion, to get healthy. They're playing the Colorado Rockies. You got Herman Marquez versus Bryce Elder. So you got to like the Braves' chances going into tonight's game. And, you know, you look around at the other teams in the National League East. You got Tampa Bay at New York. You got to like the Mets' chances there, but Tampa Bay's not bad. They can put up some. They can give them a fight there. You got Toronto at Philadelphia. Toronto is more than capable of putting a hurting on the Phillies. So the Braves could actually make a little bit of movement over the weekend, assuming that they can go 3-0 versus the Colorado Rockies. But I personally believe that the Braves must take all 3 games this weekend if they have any chance of making any type of a move prior to the All-Star break.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think the Braves were a desperate baseball team a week ago, and they needed a series win in a desperate way, and they got 2 out of 3 over the Brewers. And, you know, going into this series, like you said, good chance to get healthy, but also a good chance to get right, in my opinion, just because, you know, the Rockies, they're so
oh
bad.
My gosh,
I mean,
they're
12-55 right now. They're the worst team in baseball. The Braves don't need to just win the series. They need the 3 games, not just for the win column, but, you know, just kind of for like the mental aspect of it. You're playing the worst team in baseball. You need to get 3 games. You know, kind of sneak your way back up in the polls again. We've seen it happen once with the Braves, who didn't start off very hot to start the season, and then they kind of got back on a winning track. We need to see them kind of redo what they did in the middle of the season and get back in their winning ways.
You know, talking about this Rockies team, last year the Chicago White Sox were 41-121. that was a better team than this Rockies team.
Yeah, that's unreal.
I mean, when you think about that, how in the world you think the White Sox is the worst team I've seen in my life? I mean, the 62 Mets are notorious for being the worst team of all time, or one of the worst teams of all time. But that White Sox team from 2024, I thought, you won't see a team that bad in a long, long time. Well, right now, this Rockies team is going to be significantly worse than this White Sox team.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is crazy because I don't pay a ton of attention to the MLB, but all the talk last year, I just kept hearing like the White Sox are the worst team of all time. You know, they had I don't know what the losing streak was at one point, but well over 20 games at one point, and it was just by far the worst team in baseball. And then here we are, just 1 year removed from that team, and then you look at the Rockies, even worse. It's unreal. The Rockies actually have a bunch of young talent, which is funny enough that, you know, they're kind of taking their lumps now, but I think they'll be pretty decent in the next couple of years, but they are really, really taking their lumps now.
Well, I remember this. You remember when the Astros had their great run of success. Just prior to the Astros' great run of success, they were floundering. They couldn't get out of their own way, but it was a bunch of young guys getting experience. That they got beat up, and they got beat up bad for several years, or a couple years, I should say. Then they turned it on. They got all this great talent. They were all together. They came up together, and then, you know, the controversy with the beating on the trash can and all that stuff. Either way, they were very, very successful. But so you never know. I mean, listen, I think that the White Sox are trending in the right direction now compared to what they were last year, and I believe that at some point you'll see the Rockies be competitive again. It's just not this year. They're taking their lumps, and they're taking them lumps really, really severely. So hey, listen, the Braves need to take advantage of this. There's no crying. There's no crying in baseball, but you can't cry for these teams. You can't say, "Oh well, we're going to let up on them." These guys getting played. You're getting paid very well to play Major League Baseball. So
yeah, let me not discredit the Rockies too. They did win last night. So they're 13-55 now, and former Tennessee Volunteer relief pitcher a couple years ago, Seth Halverson, got his first save last night.
Okay.
First professional save. So he actually got the win for that too. So 1-0 in his professional career.
Okay, I'm going to change it up a little bit. You and I were talking about this, and this was an off-the-cuff thing. We were talking about the mega conferences, all these leagues. You got all these. SEC's got 16 teams. ACC's got 17. The Big Ten's got 18. And I was sitting here going, I remember the days when the SEC had 10, Big Ten had 10, the Pac-10 had 10. And then you started seeing, the SEC added Arkansas and South Carolina in 1992. Then they added Missouri and Texas A&M. And then last year they added Oklahoma and Texas. So, hello, they're all the way up at 16. So my question to you, Camden Gober, if you had to boot out two current SEC teams and you had to replace them with two non-current SEC teams, what two teams would you kick out and what two teams would you add to replace them?
Yeah, let's get into this because I'm very passionate about this. We talked a little bit of it off air. Out of the 16,
although I do not know what you're about to say.
we have no idea, and I do want to go kind of like I'll go and then you go, then I'll go, just because I think it's more fun that way. But honestly, I would kick out like 4 teams if I got a choice to.
No,
but,
you can only do 2.
If I can only do 2 out of the 16 teams, the first team I think is a no-brainer. Surely we have the same one. To me, it's Missouri. Right off rip, nothing about the state of Missouri is remotely close to the South, in my opinion. Nothing about the University of Missouri's athletic department resembles anything in the SEC. They're the most Midwest.
That's the most Midwest state in the whole country.
They're the most. Yes, thank you.
Really
the most Midwest state in the country.
They're more Midwest than Nebraska or Iowa or Illinois. They really are.
And it doesn't make any sense to me. They're so. I mean, I know they kind of make a little bit of sense. They're a border state to a lot of southern states, but they're not a southern state in any way, and they just don't make any sense in the SEC. Athletic wise, it doesn't really make sense for them.
Their facilities are way behind a lot of the
way
SEC.
behind. Have you, going off topic here, have you ever been to Columbia?
I know their baseball facilities are nowhere near what most SEC teams are. I know they've made strides at the football facilities and the football stadium, but the basketball arena is a little dated. And no, I've never been there, but I've heard people that I know that have been there. They said, boy, this don't feel like what we're used to.
Yeah,
and they've made some improvement, but they're still quite a ways behind.
They're still quite a ways behind.
Have you been there?
I was fortunate enough to tour there. Yes, we were. I want to say sophomore year of high school. I was playing an AAU tournament in Kansas City, so we drove through there, and on the way back, my AAU coach knew Coach Quanzo Martin, who was at Missouri before. Right. So we kind of got to tour the basketball facility and all that. Really nice, don't get me wrong, but it is the campus and everything. I think is a step behind everything in the SEC. And I know their football team has had some good years, but you take football out of it, Missouri's not really been competitive in any sport since they've joined the conference. I mean, if you look at any women's sport, they're kind of sitting dead last in everything year in, year out. Their basketball programs had peaks and valleys, but mostly just not very good, and their baseball program has been dead last in the SEC for as long as I can remember.
Their baseball program was 0 for the season until they swept Texas A&M.
Yeah, that was
the
bizarre.
darndest thing I'd ever seen.
0-24, and they went and won 3 games at Texas A&M.
That's unreal. So you got Missouri, you booted them out.
Yeah.
So do you want me to do one?
Yeah, you can go ahead. You do one.
I also booted out Missouri because they don't feel like an SEC team even after 12 years. Mm-hmm. They still feel like an outsider to me. And I know there's good people there in Missouri. This is not a dig. I think Missouri feels like a Big Ten program. They feel more Big Ten than they do SEC. But they're in the SEC, and they're probably not going to leave anytime soon. So that I agree with that. Those two, to me, I mean that one school to me is a no-brainer. All right, who's your other one?
Well, one more thing about Missouri, real quick. My thing about conference realignment is their 3 biggest rivals are, I would say, traditionally Kansas, obviously with the border war. Kansas State and Iowa State have been throughout, all of time. But I mean, Arkansas is kind of a budding rivalry or whatnot, but it was kind of forced. So
it was forced.
So schools like that, your 3 biggest rivals, Oklahoma, you can throw in there as well.
Missouri and Illinois have a great rivalry in basketball. They used to play in football a lot too.
Oh yeah.
But that's like I said, Illinois, Missouri, obviously Kansas. So their 2 biggest non-conference. Let me rephrase it. Their 2 biggest rivalries are not conference teams.
Yeah. So my second school, kind of taking a different route. You're probably not going to expect this, but just based on the question, only being able to remove 2, I would actually keep the Texas schools together, and I like the rest of the conference the way it is. So I would actually remove Oklahoma, which I know athletically and money-wise, I think they're a good fit for the SEC in the long term. But again, nothing about the state of Oklahoma to me says anything about the SEC. Like it doesn't make any sense. Sure, they have the football pedigree to compete with the SEC. They have the Final Fours in basketball to show for it. They have the baseball success to show for it. But to me, nothing about Oklahoma screams SEC. To me, they're very Midwest. They're as Big 12 as Big 12 gets, and I didn't want any part of them in the SEC. Not because not because I'm scared of Oklahoma or anything in the SEC, but just because I just don't think it makes any sense. Like, to me, when I think of Big 12, I think of Oklahoma football in its heyday. I think of Buddy Hield in basketball. I think of, all those guys all in the Big 12. Like, Oklahoma is as Big 12 as it gets. Them in the SEC makes no sense.
See, I'm older than you, so I think of Oklahoma as Barry Switzer versus Tom Osborne, Nebraska versus Oklahoma. Always fighting for the Big 8 championship, going to the Orange Bowl, playing at Florida State or Miami. But those were the teams that, like I said, that was such a good rivalry, and that's gone away. And unfortunately, with Oklahoma coming to the SEC, Bedlam has gone away. Oklahoma State, which is, to me, a travesty. It's just so bad. Now, my second team that I'm kicking out, South Carolina. I know there's some South Carolina fans around here that are like dog cussing me right now, but because I would like to see South Carolina and Clemson be in the together again in the ACC. That's my reasoning there, because obviously I just showed my hand. I'm not adding Clemson to the SEC. If South Carolina's not going to be in, I don't want Clemson in either.
Yeah.
So who are the teams that you're going to add to replace Missouri and Oklahoma?
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to be very boring about this. I'm going to take 2 teams that have been in the SEC before. First one, I think, is a no-brainer. It's Georgia Tech. I think they make the most sense. They're right there in Atlanta. They're in the SEC hotbed. They're right there in the Deep South. They have natural rivalries with Georgia. Tennessee, Georgia Tech was a big rivalry for a long time. Georgia Tech and Alabama, Georgia Tech, Auburn, Georgia Tech, Florida. They all have, 60 plus meetings in football. They've played each other in sports throughout the years. Georgia Tech is very ACC territory, or very.
They're in the heart of the SEC.
They're in the heart of the SEC. But when I think about the ACC, I do think of Georgia Tech. But Georgia Tech just makes way too much sense. Academically, I think them and Vanderbilt would be, perfect.
It's a
perfect
great
little
school.
fit. Yeah,
Georgia Tech's a great school.
Great school, great engineering school. But athletics, the rivalries, the recruiting hotbeds. I think everything about Georgia Tech screams SEC.
I'll tell you something. If Georgia Tech was in the SEC, I think their recruiting would go way up.
Oh yeah, they could dominate Atlanta.
They would be a real problem for a lot of teams.
They definitely would
because they would put more money into their football program. They'd redo their stadium, probably add some seats and everything. No, I think that they would be a real problem if they were in the SEC.
They would take away from a ton of SEC schools, including, in-state Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, all these schools who, hit the Atlanta metro area big time every year. I think a lot of those kids would end up going to Georgia Tech.
So you say you're going to add two that were former SEC members. Now, I'm assuming the other one's not going to be Sewanee, which obviously used to be in the SEC. A lot of people around here don't know that.
It'd be interesting.
They were up there on the mountain there.
Yeah, they're
Sewanee were a founding member of the SEC, and they never won a single football game. They were 0 for their entire existence in the SEC.
Crazy.
So I'm assuming the other was Tulane.
It is. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and say Tulane, yes. Tulane, to me, if you're looking at conference realignment, they're just like the odd team out, which – it's like, do they fit the American? Do they fit the Big 12? Not really. Do they fit the Sun Belt? Not really. I think they're, kind of in a league of their own. They remind me a lot of Memphis. Of course, those two schools are in the same league. They're just very similar to me. They're like bigger brand schools, but in smaller conferences because enrollment or whatnot. But Tulane, again, they have a ton of natural rivals in the SEC. They're in the heart of New Orleans, so they have that LSU rival, which for whatever reason,
a lot of recruiting advantages down there.
For whatever reason, those two refuse to play each other, so you would kind of force your hand in that game. And Tulane and Ole Miss also go way back. Yep. They're big rivals. Tulane, Mississippi State. I think Tulane would be, if I had to, of course, throw them in there, I think I would toss them a bone.
That would be interesting, and I'm not. I think that's actually pretty cool that you would do that. My two that I would add would be Florida State and North Carolina. I know a lot of people say Clemson. Yeah, I know Clemson's football program is better, but to me, North Carolina, I love that university. I think they're a sleeping giant. I've always thought that North Carolina could be really great, but they're in the wrong conference. If North Carolina was in the Southeastern Conference and they have the money flowing in there that SEC schools do, I think North Carolina could be a beast in every sport. I believe that wholeheartedly. And Florida State the same way. But no, North Carolina to me would be the plum of any school out there. I'm talking, I'd pick them over Florida State. I'd pick them over Miami, over Clemson. North Carolina would be my very first choice of any school to add if the SEC could do that. Yeah. I just think that's the one school that I would want more than anyone.
See, honestly, I could not disagree more. I think North Carolina, to me, the entire state of North Carolina, all the North Carolina schools are as ACC.
Tobacco Road.
They're as ACC as it gets. When you think basketball, I think of the ACC. I think of those four teams. North Carolina, I don't think is an SEC fit in any way. Not to offend any North Carolina fans out there, but they're very, very cheese and wine type fan base. So I don't think they would fit in the SEC. Florida State's got a valid argument, but North Carolina, I don't see it.
Okay. Let's go ahead and take our second break. When we come back, we may end a little bit more we might get into this a little bit more, but there's some more stuff we're going to get into as well. You're listening to The Drive here on ESPN Cleveland. We'll be back after this.
The Drive will be back after a quick timeout. Stay tuned for more nonstop sports talk on The Drive, presented by Hardees.
We tend not to think about right now, but right now in front of us is victory over cancer. Right now, cancer research funded by the V Foundation is leading to better treatments and saving lives. When you give to the V Foundation, 100% of your donation goes directly to game-changing cancer research. Victory over cancer is there for the taking by you. Donate at v.org, because today's cancer research is tomorrow's victory.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
ESPN Cleveland 101.3 is powered by Duracell.
Hey guys, this is Dan Good from Crown. Just reminding you that Crown Jeep is Cleveland and Bradley County's Jeep headquarters.
When you need a new roof, it's all about trust. Your home is too big an investment and you can't afford to make a mistake. Cleveland Plywood has the products and expertise you're looking for. Contractors have trusted them for over 50 years, and they carry only proven products from reputable suppliers like IKO. IKO Cambridge is one of the heaviest weight asphalt shingles you can buy, and their limited warranties are among the industry's best. Protect the investment you've made in your home. Go with the pros at Cleveland Plywood, 2700 20th Street Northeast in Cleveland. Call 472-3357.
More providers in more places. That's Erlanger Medical Group. More than 500 providers across 70 locations, from primary care to virtually every medical specialty. For an appointment, call 423-778-DOCS. That's 778-DOCS.
Since 1993, Check Into Cash has offered cash solutions to our customers. The application process is simple, and the lending decisions are quick. If you've been approved, you can leave our store with cash in hand. Our loan options are built to handle life's small emergencies. We offer reliable payday loans and line of credit options. Visit our website at checkintocash.com to learn more about your options, and when you're ready, drop by our conveniently located stores in the Chattanooga area, including Cleveland and Athens, to apply. We also offer various in-store financial services like check cashing, money orders, wire transfers, and even gift card buyback. Take the first step toward a bright financial future. We're here to help and aim to be your one-stop money shop. Not all consumers will qualify. Eligibility, rates, terms, and conditions apply. Rates, restrictions, and fees apply to store services. Please call or visit your local store for details.
When life gets busy, Little Caesars can be there to help with hot and ready pizzas and more from 4 to 8 p.m. You can't beat the taste of delicious pizza at a great price and hot and ready for dinner. 3 locations: Paul Huff, Key Street, and McGrady Drive, or order online.
Hey Cleveland, are you suffering from fatigue, low sex drive, or just not feeling like yourself? Optimize You is the answer that you have been looking for. Our team is here to listen and help you become the best version of yourself again. So find us online at OptimizeYouCenters.com. That's OptimizeYouCenters.com.
Welcome back to The Drive, presented by Hardees. Join the conversation. Text 423-749-1013. You can also listen anywhere on our website, ESPNCleveland1013.com.
You're listening to The Drive here on ESPN in Cleveland. Hope everyone out there is having a good Friday. Hey, Duracell in Cleveland is now hiring mechanical skilled technicians, $22 to $27 an hour. Excellent benefits beginning day one: medical, dental, and vision insurance, paid vacation, holiday pay, 401k, tuition reimbursement, and more. Apply now at Duracell.com. That's Duracell.com. So when we went to break, we were talking about this crazy thing I thought there. If you could throw out 2 teams and had to replace them with 2 teams, who would they be? I had Missouri and South Carolina, and I replaced them with North Carolina, Florida State. You had Missouri and Oklahoma.
Then I added Tulane and Georgia Tech. 2
former SEC teams. One dropped in '63. The other one dropped in 1965. Anyway, that would be cool. Actually, I like the teams you added better than I do. I think that's really cool.
North Carolina, I don't know where that came from.
Well,
it's a horrible pick.
So, of course, back, and I hate living in the past, but, it is what it is. I really miss the leagues like the Big 8, Southwest Conference, the Pac-10, so the Pac-12. You had the Big East back then, but you didn't have any mega conferences. Your opinion about, 14, 15, 16, 18 league teams. What's your opinion about that?
I absolutely hate it. I hate everything about it. If I had to choose, I would revert back. I would say 12. 12 is a good number, but if you can get it down to 10, I think 10 makes the most sense. Because if you look at every sport across the board, if you have 10 teams, you'll play, every team either like twice in basketball. So you have an 18-game schedule. You play 9 teams at home, 9 teams away. You can play them twice. In football, you can play every team every year with the 9-game schedule. And just every sport across the board, that makes the most sense. When you get up to, 14, 16, even 17 or 18.
The Big Ten has 18. ACC has 17.
See, that's just ridiculous in my eyes. I don't agree with that at all. I wish, you can kind of revert back. I don't know about like the Big 8 nowadays, just because 7 conference games. I don't know how that would fly.
And that's what they did, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how that would, go over that well. Them and the Big East both did that for a while, I believe. But yeah, I would definitely revert to like a 10 to 12 number range. I think fits everybody best.
And I'm right there with you, because I do think that they've made it just too big,
Yeah, way too big.
And it seems more professional than collegial, in my opinion. I like college sports. Doesn't feel like college sports used to feel to me, and I don't like that. And I don't know if it's because of the mega conferences or the NIL and the transfer portal. It just doesn't feel like it once did. And I'm not, I still love, don't get me wrong, I love to watch college football. But, man, there's things about college sports that really rub me the wrong way these days. And I don't know what the future is. It seems like it's evolving every time you turn around.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. You just kind of, you never know. Like, to me, I look at, like, the ACC just revealed their basketball conference slate. And for the first time since 1917, North Carolina State aren't playing a home and home.
That's ridiculous.
Like, every team in the ACC plays each other one time, and then you get one permanent opponent to play each other twice. So you're telling me
North Carolina Duke, obviously.
You're telling me the 4 North Carolina schools don't get to play a home and away. Like, to me, that's just you're ruining what college sports was built on.
I don't know if you know this, but last year the Big Ten played 20 conference games, the ACC played 20. The Big 12 played 20, and the Big East played 20. The SEC played 18.
Yeah.
So the ACC said, we're going back to 18.
Yep.
They feel like it was an advantage. The SEC played 2 fewer league games so they could pad their records to get more teams in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
There may be some truth there. But to me, to sacrifice North Carolina versus North Carolina State twice, that's insane. It's insane.
It just ruins it. Like you just said, like, what college sports was built on, you're taking away. Like, you're taking away all these regional rivalries that the fan base loves, that draws the attention of the average viewer. You're taking it away. Like, no disrespect, but going back to the ACC opponents, Louisville, they're kind of like the odd man out in this sense. So their one home and away team that they drew was SMU. No offense to SMU, but like Louisville fans, they don't care about SMU.
I'm assuming Stanford and Cal are playing home and home.
So Stanford and Cal, home and
That's
home.
a no-brainer.
Some of them make a little bit more sense. Boston College, Notre Dame got the home and home, and then everybody else kind of matches up.
Do you know
with
who
their rival.
Syracuse got? Is it Georgetown?
I think it's Pittsburgh.
I mean Pittsburgh. No, Georgetown's not. And they're in the ACC. What am I thinking?
Yeah,
I'm thinking Big East. See, I've still got Syracuse in the Big East.
Hey, Syracuse should be in the Big East. While we're on the conversation,
my gosh.
it's just
anyway.
It's a mess.
Speaking of college basketball, they're leaning towards going to quarters instead of halves. And every other basketball on the face of the earth, is quarters. I mean, elementary, high school, middle school, high school, women, NBA. Except for the men at the NCAA level, they still play first half, second half. I don't care. It doesn't bother me, but it will be weird to see third quarter, fourth quarter in college basketball, because it's been first half and second half my whole life.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I don't think it's going to affect me that greatly. Like, I don't really think I'm going to care after a couple years after I'm used to it. But just from what I'm used to, the half system, I didn't mind it at all. Now, I know Jay Billis, who's the biggest advocate in the world to go to quarters system, who's college basketball's biggest analyst on ESPN. But he has a point. Like, what people don't realize about the halves quarters system is the bonus. Like, after the first quarter, your fouls reset. So, like, if you're in the bonus in the first quarter,
the team fouls,
yes, they reset going into the second quarter. So you have 6 more team fouls until you get in the bonus.
Okay.
And in halves, you could get in the bonus, 6 minutes into the game.
True. I never thought about that.
And you have 14 minutes left in that first half to play, and you're still in the bonus, and the team can get into the double bonus really quickly. It kind of slows the pace down.
It does. I never thought about that. Actually, I'm all for the quarters now.
See,
if that's the case.
That's like that's the biggest argument. And Jay Billis, I only bring him up because every single basketball game he calls, I swear that he mentions it every single game, saying it's absolutely ridiculous. It makes sense.
I think he's the best analyst there is. I love him when he's an analyst. I do, because he's so intelligent. Of course, he's very, very smart.
Yeah, I was going to say,
but he does
really
a great job of stuff like that. So that swayed me. That I'm like, go to the
That's
course.
all it took?
Go to the guy. That's all it took. We're talking about a change in a rule. To me, that's not drastic. The most drastic changes, and Andy and I talked about this many times, is it drives me crazy in baseball when they start a guy in extra innings on second base. That's insanity. But the dynamic kickoff in NFL is another one. Just absolutely.
It's so stupid.
They got that from either the USFL or the XFL. I can't remember which one.
One of the
did
two,
that, and the NFL adopted it. I'm sorry, man.
It is ridiculous.
It's the sissification of football.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want anyone to get hurt. These guys these collisions. Guys get hurt. It's a risk.
Yeah, it's
when
football.
when you play football, when you sign up, there's going to be a collision at some point in your life. It's going to happen. Quarterbacks get blindsided. Wide receivers get hit hard. Everyone's going to take a really big shot at some point. That's football. Football is not a contact sport. It's a collision sport.
Yeah.
You know that going in. And I get the safety thing. We don't want to see guys having CTE issues as they get older in life. But, I didn't play much football. I could have CTE issues, and mine wouldn't be anything to do with football. But I get it. I understand it to a certain point. But, man, like the targeting rule, to me, they throw out guys, and it's ridiculous. If you watch these games and you watch these collisions, you know when there's intent, when there's not intent. And what kills me is when a guy the running back lowers his head, and then the defender hits him crown on, and then who gets thrown out of the game? The defensive
defender,
guy.
yeah.
Every time I'm like, wait a minute, he's not the one. The offensive guy initiated that by he lowered his head.
Yeah, like the targeting rule really gets under my skin, but the dynamic kickoff, don't even get me started. I mean, that's just ridiculous. That's just ruining what the game of football is. But the targeting rule itself is one that's bothered me for years because like you said, you can tell when there's malicious intent to harm or injure somebody in midair. So, saying a guy's running a slant across the middle and he gets blown up by a free safety, maybe it's late, maybe it's not. You can tell if that's malicious or not. If the running back was a great example. That's the best example you can use. A running back just running in the middle of the field, head-on collision with the safety, that's not targeting.
No, it's
that's
not
called
targeting.
tackling.
Yeah, and the
most
running
of the
back
time-
usually is the one that lowers his head, and so the defender, he cannot adjust quick enough to avoid that helmet-to-helmet contact.
The way they want the defenders to tackle honestly makes no sense. Like, I get the head up, like you're trying to avoid the head-on collisions, but at the end of the day, you're trying to make the tackle. Like you're babying grown adults in my eyes. It's just
and you're wearing a helmet. You're wearing a helmet for protection. We understand it's not supposed to be used as a weapon, but there's going to be times there's what I call incidental contact with two guys' helmets. You got to understand. These officials have got to understand. There's a difference between a launch and a spearing type tackle. And incidental helmet to helmet that happens to be crown to crown. Those need to be just no flag thrown. And if there is a flag thrown, pick it up. You got to know the difference between intent and incidental type contact.
Yeah.
And I think some of these officials are like, there you go, but letter by the law. And I'm like, letter of the law. And I'm like, come on, man. You got to understand the situation.
I got another one that I don't know why I didn't think of this earlier. It just hit me. The worst whatever rule, I guess you would say, in sports is roughing the passer nowadays. I don't know how I didn't think of it earlier.
It's crazy.
It is ridiculous. If you're watching a game, I mean, you could run by and accidentally hit the quarterback and bump him on the shoulder, and you're getting a 15-yard penalty.
It's ridiculous.
The quarterback has the ball in his hand, and you're going to tackle him. You have him halfway to the ground, and he lets the ball go, and you're tackling him. You finish out the play, and it's roughing the passer.
What kills me is like a quarterback is going back, he's in the pocket, and he's going to launch a ball probably 30, 40 yards down the field. So the defender's closing the gap. He leaps up to try to bat the ball down. He misses it. but his momentum
The
takes him
follow-through?
into the quarterback.
Yes.
There's no malicious intent, but man, if you make contact, that flag's coming out 100 out of 100 times.
Oh, yeah.
And these officials, because they put it in the rules, after the ball has left the quarterback, you cannot touch the quarterback. But there are times where, like, come on, man.
Yeah, like, come on, guys.
Just watch the game. Watch the intent and the malicious intent. And I see guys that sometimes they'll put their hands up, and I know this is bad radio because people out there listening can't see me.
Yeah.
They put their hands up, going, hey, I didn't mean to hit him. And officials, they're looking at him like, nope.
Yep.
Throwing that flag. And
Like, well, you touched him.
Yeah, you touched him.
It's a lot worse than the NFL, and I don't watch nearly as much NFL as college. So in college, they don't call it as much, but it's beginning to get worse. But at the later half of that NFL season last year, it was almost unwatchable. If you would watch, like, not to throw names, but if you would watch Patrick Mahomes, running around in the pocket, a guy that likes to extend plays, he has the ball in his hand, he rolls out of the pocket, he's not getting sacked, he's running around, and again, like you said, you're going up to block the pass, a follow-through kind of hits you, maybe like grazes the side of your helmet. I mean, that's a 15-yard penalty, unsportsmanlike.
Yep.
Yeah, automatic. You have no argument.
The good thing, I will say this about the NFL, though, they don't have the target rule where they eject players like they do in college. Yeah. And in college, they've got to fix this. It's a joke. It's the worst though is when a guy gets thrown out in the second half and then he has to miss the first half of the next game. That's ridiculous.
It doesn't even make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
Like, and that goes back. It might not even be a malicious play. It might just be like he was the wrong spot at the wrong time and just lowered his head a little bit or whatnot, and then just gets tossed. Not just that game, but the game next week.
What I think they should do is not eject a guy for the entire game. They should eject him for maybe 15 minutes of game time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's a clock on him when not when the clock stopped, but when the clock is running, he has a clock on him that he's got to miss 15 minutes of clock time on the game, and then when that expires, he's allowed to re-enter.
Yeah,
that's his punishment. He got to miss basically a quarter of the game, which is, to me, that's okay. I don't like throwing them out for the whole game, or really, they're throwing them out for 60, sometimes 57 minutes. I've seen guys ejected early in the first quarter. They missed. That's a whole game.
Oh yeah.
Whereas you get flagged for 2 minutes left in the first half. It's the same. He's still, he has to miss the end of that first half and the second half, but that's it.
Yeah.
So the way they've got it timed is not fair. It's the way they've got it timed. So one other thing. Do you think college football would ever do the dynamic kickoff? I haven't heard it talked about, but you know how the college football seems to follow the rules of the NFL.
Oh yeah.
Now they haven't done the hash marks. I've talked to you about that off there. I like the NFL hash marks much better than the college hash marks. In case those are out there listening, the NFL hash marks are the same width as the uprights, and to me, that just makes more sense as far as a kicker. You shouldn't make a kicker go beyond the the upright and kick it through at a severe angle. But that's what they're doing. But I don't like this dynamic kickoff, and I hope college football never does this.
I don't think they'll end up doing it. I think it'll be. It's not in talks yet, thankfully, but I don't think the college they copy a lot of stuff from the NFL, but I don't think they'll copy the dynamic kickoff. And we'll see about the hash lines. I think that's the hash marks. Yeah, the hash marks. Yeah. Excuse me. That's an interesting point.
All right. Hey, by the way, the final score in that first game of the College World Series, it was 7-4.
7-4. Coastal Carolina moves on 1-0 in the College World Series.
Go Chanticleers. Hey, appreciate everyone out there listening to us. Camden, thank you so much for coming in on short notice, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Hey, you've been listening to The Drive. We'll catch you again on Monday at 5 o'clock. Have a good weekend.
The new home for ESPN Radio is ESPN Cleveland 101.